cutting off Prince Andrew because I had always understood that was going to have to look after his brother. The king did appreciate and realize that he...
Prince Andrew was supposed to fade into the background, a disgraced royal tucked neatly out of public view. The palace had done its job, silencing the noise, masking the shame, and keeping the scandal at bay. For years, his name barely crossed the headlines, and when it did, it was whispered, never shouted. But that silence has now been broken. Not in a subtle or scripted way, but with raw, pointed words that have turned Buckingham Palace into a pressure cooker. And the man who once ducked behind royal walls is now the one detonating the bombs. His statements didn't just stir controversy, they ignited a wildfire. In a move that stunned even the most seasoned royal watchers, Prince Andrew launched a verbal assault aimed directly at his brother, King Charles. Not veiled, not cautious, just blistering honesty that cut straight through the polished facade. The royal family has spent decades protecting. What was once a private feud has now gone public, and the monarchy, already fragile from recent storms, has been thrust into another crisis. The timing couldn't have been worse or more calculated. With King Charles battling health concerns and trying to reshape a modern monarchy in his image, Andrew's accusations aren't just personal, they're political. They challenge the throne's legitimacy, expose internal fractures, and hint at an emotional betrayal that's been festering for years. He's not simply lashing out, he's reclaiming a voice long denied to him. And the implications are devastating. Media outlets swarmed, headlines screamed, and royal aides scrambled. What was behind Andrew's sudden boldness? Was it revenge, desperation, or perhaps a final attempt to salvage his identity in a family that no longer considers him one of their own? Insiders say the words were more than just a moment of catharsis. They were a warning shot, a declaration that he would not go quietly, that even stripped of titles and public favor, he still had the power to wound. And make no mistake, he has. His words hit deep, not just in the palace halls, but across a nation already divided over the monarchy's future. What he's exposed is more than sibling rivalry. It's the unraveling of a royal identity, the painful fallout of scandal, and a fight to stay relevant in a system that thrives on silence. But to understand why Andrew's words hit so hard, we need to go back to the scandal that destroyed everything. It started as whispers, fleeting rumors dismissed by the palace and brushed off by loyalists. But in 2019, one photograph changed everything. It didn't need captions or context. It spoke louder than any denial ever could. Prince Andrew, standing beside Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most outspoken accusers, his hand resting on her waist, Ghislaine Maxwell lingering in the background. That image, frozen in time, ignited a scandal that would shatter not just a man's public image, but dismantle the illusion of invincibility surrounding the British royal family. For years, Andrew's connection to Epstein had been quietly tolerated, minimized as just another high society acquaintance. But Epstein's arrest and subsequent death forced a reckoning. The media storm was unrelenting, the headlines damning. Andrew's alleged involvement was no longer a background detail, it was the headline. Calls for accountability surged, and, in a moment of staggering miscalculation, the prince agreed to a televised interview with the BBC's Newsnight, hoping to silence the noise. What followed, however, was a PR catastrophe of historic proportions. Instead of remorse, viewers were met with cold detachment. Instead of empathy for the victims, he offered bizarre alibis and personal quirks, like an inability to sweat or a memorable evening at a Pizza Express in Woking. His words weren't just tone-deaf, they were offensive, out of touch, and infuriating. The public wasn't just disappointed, they were enraged. Within days, any hope of redemption vanished. The high backlash was immediate and severe. The man who once represented Britain on the world stage now symbolized disgrace. The fallout came swiftly. One by one, charities distanced themselves. Military affiliations severed ties. Public events were cancelled, and royal engagements quietly removed him from their schedules. The palace, known for protecting its own, had no choice but to act. Andrew was forced to step back from royal duties indefinitely. It wasn't just a formality, it was exile in plain sight. And as the dust settled, it became clear. This wasn't a stumble. It was a collapse. A royal reputation that had taken decades to build had been demolished in a matter of days. But Andrew wasn't the only one who paid the price. His family felt the heat too. When a prince falls, his family bears the wounds. And in the case of Prince Andrew, those wounds cut deeper than anyone could have imagined. The scandal didn't just engulf him. It spread like a wildfire across the House of York, exposing every crack, every unresolved tension, and every fragile bond held together by royal tradition. For Sarah Ferguson, his former wife and lifelong ally, the moment wasn't one of retreat, but defiance. She didn't hide. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, calling him a good man caught in an impossible storm. Her words weren't just defense. They were a line in the sand. Even after divorce, even in disgrace, she stood by him while the rest of the world turned away. But it wasn't just Sarah thrust back into the spotlight. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, once sheltered from the harsher edges of royal scrutiny, suddenly became targets of a storm they never invited. The media didn't just observe them, it dissected them. Every appearance, every silence, every glance beside their father was scrutinized for meaning. Were they defending him, endorsing him, or simply trying to survive the onslaught while clinging to what little remained of their family's dignity? The public's reaction was divided. Some sympathized with daughters caught between loyalty and legacy. Others saw complicity in silence. And through it all, the House of York stood alone adrift from the wider royal circle, suspended in a strange twilight between tradition and disgrace. As royal engagements disappeared and public life faded, their private moments became the only remaining currency. And those moments, however brief, told a story of a family refusing to abandon one of their own, no matter the cost. But that refusal came at a price. Invitations to royal events dwindled. Official roles vanished. The Yorks became ghosts in a palace they once called home. And yet, even in their withdrawal, they didn't disappear. Beatrice and Eugenie continued to be seen with their father, not making statements, not giving interviews, but simply present. And that presence spoke louder than words. It wasn't a public relations move. It was personal. It was family. But to the outside world, it posed a dangerous question. Was this unity or rebellion? The monarchy remained tight-lipped, offering no comment as the Yorks clung to one another in the face of public judgment. But their silence couldn't stop the speculation. Could this family, once proud and prominent, survive such a fall? Or were they merely holding on to a version of royalty that no longer wanted them? And just when it seemed the storm had passed, Andrew starts talking again. Behind the crown, a sibling war brews, and it's about more than just blood. It's a feud, simmering in silence, fed by decades of rivalry, resentment, and now, a sense of betrayal that refuses to be buried. Prince Andrew, once secure in the royal hierarchy, now finds himself publicly at odds with the very man who once called him Brother King Charles. And this time, it's not about protocol or precedence, it's about survival, identity, and revenge. According to insiders, Andrew believes he's been cast out deliberately financially, emotionally, and institutionally. In private, his accusations are sharp. He claims Charles didn't just step into the role of monarch, he seized the opportunity to erase him from the family altogether. Where there was once support, there's now silence. Where there was once privilege, there's now absence. Andrew sees it all as calculated, a quiet, ruthless maneuver to sever him from everything he was born into. And the pain goes deeper than lost titles or canceled appearances. It's about money, inheritance, and legacy. After the death of Queen Elizabeth II, there was an unspoken assumption among the royal children that her private estate would be shared. But Andrew says that assumption was shattered when Charles took control of nearly everything. He wasn't just excluded, he was cut off. The royal purse strings tightened, allowances vanished, and offers of support turned to formal denials. It wasn't just a financial decision, it felt personal, a betrayal by someone who knew exactly what that would mean to him. Andrew, who once leaned on the structure of monarchy for his identity, now sees those very walls closing in, and the sting is sharpened by comparison. He believes his brother lacks the empathy and unity their mother embodied. Where Queen Elizabeth had been a quiet force of inclusion, Charles, he says, is cold, calculated, and transactional. It's monarchy as a business, not a family. And Andrew, once a shareholder in the institution, now sees himself being bought out, cut off, and cast aside. The most painful accusation of all? That Charles is doing it on purpose. That the new king sees Andrew as a liability too costly to keep, and is systematically wiping his existence from the books. Titles removed, access denied, legacy dismantled. For Andrew, it's not just a fall from grace, it's an orchestrated erasure. A brother's betrayal dressed in royal decree. But beneath the war of words lies a deeper battle over a house that means everything. It's not just a house, it's the last symbol of everything Andrew lost. Royal Lodge, nestled behind centuries-old gates in Windsor, isn't merely bricks and mortar. It's legacy, it's memory, it's identity. For over 2 decades, it's been Andrew's sanctuary, a grand reminder of his place in the royal tapestry. But now, even that is slipping away. King Charles, determined to cut costs and modernize a monarchy weighed down by scandal and excess, has set his sights on the property. And in doing so, he's turned what was once a quiet inheritance into a battleground. To the public, it may look like a financial shuffle, a move to tighten the crown's belt and usher in a leaner, more responsible reign. But to Andrew, it's an act of war. Losing Royal Lodge would mean more than packing boxes. It would mean surrendering the final thread that ties him to the institution he was born into. He's not just resisting eviction, he's fighting for what little remains of a royal life that's been stripped away piece by piece. First the titles, then the duties, then the dignity. And now, the very roof over his head. Insiders say Andrew is digging in, refusing to leave. Not out of entitlement, but desperation. Because Royal Lodge is more than comfort. It's the last standing monument to a past he can't let go of. To step out of that house would be to admit, once and for all, that he no longer belongs. That the door to the monarchy has closed, and the lock has been turned from the inside. For Charles, reclaiming the property serves a broader purpose. It signals to the public and the press that excess has consequences, that the new monarchy won't tolerate waste or scandal. But beneath the surface, it's a power move, one that strips Andrew not only of privilege, but of presence. It's a calculated way to rewrite the royal narrative, leaving Andrew outside the palace gates, out of sight, out of mind. And as the standoff drags on, the stakes grow heavier. For Andrew, it's not about opulence, it's about identity. To lose Royal Lodge would be to lose the last visible proof that he was once a working part of Britain's most powerful family. It's not just exile, it's erasure. But the financial war isn't just about a house, it's about power and control. Queen Elizabeth's death didn't end the drama, it unleashed a financial storm. As Britain mourned the passing of its longest reigning monarch, a quieter, more ruthless conflict began to simmer behind the palace walls. The Queen's personal fortune, her private estates, properties, and holdings, were supposed to be her final gesture of legacy. But for Prince Andrew, that legacy came with a bitter revelation. He had been cut out. What was once assumed to be shared among her children quickly became a consolidation of power under King Charles. And for Andrew, the sting wasn't just financial, it was personal. It was betrayal sealed with a royal crest. The crown estate and sovereign grants are one thing, but Balmoral and Sandringham? Those were hers, privately owned. They weren't governed by duty, law, or protocol. They were the Queen's to bequeath as she pleased. And Andrew, once favored, once protected, believed he would be remembered not just in sentiment, but in legacy. Instead, what he received was silence. Balmoral went to Charles, Sandringham, too. All the while, the man once called Mummy's favorite was left watching as everything familiar slipped into someone else's hands. To the public, the transfer of properties seemed ceremonial, but within the royal family, it was explosive. Andrew didn't just lose homes, he lost leverage, power, recognition. The sense that he still mattered to the institution that once defined his every breath. Behind closed doors, resentment festered. He wasn't just cut off from royal duties and residences, he was being erased from the Queen's final chapter. And as each estate fell under Charles's control, the message became clearer. The new king wasn't interested in shared legacy, he was claiming it all. Insiders say Charles is consolidating not just assets, but authority. In a monarchy reeling from scandal and sagging public trust, he's tightening the structure, pruning the tree. And Andrew, still marred by the Epstein scandal, is the first branch to fall. His place, once rooted in tradition, is now dangling, waiting to be severed entirely. The optics are deliberate. The royal family, once sprawling and complicated, is being reshaped into a lean, focused symbol of modernity. But beneath the elegance lies strategy and silence that cuts deeper than words ever could. Andrew's exclusion from inheritance isn't about money. It's about power, legacy, and survival. It's about being cast out by the very system that raised him. And as he lashes out from behind closed doors, Charles's reign begins to tremble, not just under the weight of scandal, but from a growing generational revolt that threatens the very soul of the monarchy. 2 generations, 2 visions, 1 crumbling legacy. The British monarchy, once an unshakable pillar of national identity, now finds itself caught in a cultural storm that shows no sign of quieting. For older Britons, the monarchy is sacred, a living thread that ties the present to the past, a source of stability in a rapidly shifting world. Royal traditions, ceremonies, and figures are still revered, and the memory of Queen Elizabeth's steady hand lingers like a ghost. But for the younger generation, those golden images have dulled. What once represented unity now feels like hierarchy. What once inspired awe now sparks resentment. Prince Andrew's scandal didn't create this divide, but it deepened it in ways the palace never predicted. To older eyes, it was a tragic misstep. To younger voices, it was proof that privilege had protected the powerful far too long. Proof that consequences don't reach high enough. As Andrew retreated into silence, the younger public didn't forget they took notes. And with every whisper of favoritism, every headline of inheritance, and every stonewall from Buckingham Palace, the gap between reverence and rebellion widened. But in this divide, new royal figures have emerged, each pulling the institution in different directions. Prince William and Catherine, poised and polished, represent a monarchy trying to evolve. Their public work around mental health, environment, and community has given the monarchy a lifeline among younger audiences hungry for purpose over pomp. Yet even their charm hasn't been enough to erase the shadows left by the past. Then came Harry and Meghan, a break so sharp, so public, it split royal loyalty down the middle. Their departure wasn't just a rejection of tradition. It was a demand for accountability, a plea for freedom from a system that they claimed cared more about image than humanity. Their outcry echoed across the globe, lighting a fire in the hearts of younger audiences who saw themselves in their defiance. And for the monarchy, the timing couldn't have been worse. Now, the public question isn't whether the royal family will continue, but whether it should. With each scandal, each resignation, each outdated stance, the monarchy is being forced to justify its place in a world that demands more than lineage. The generational fault line has been drawn, and on either side stand 2 very different visions of Britain's future. But while the monarchy faces philosophical crises, Charles faces a personal one, and the next move might define his legacy. 1 king, 1 brother, 1 final decision that could change everything. After months of whispers and mounting pressure, King Charles now stands at a crossroads that no monarch ever wants to face. Preserve the unity of a fractured family, or protect the fragile crown entrusted to him. The palace walls may still gleam with tradition, but behind them, urgency is rising. Prince Andrew's defiance, his lingering titles, and his continued presence at Royal Lodge have become more than a personal embarrassment. They're a threat to the monarchy's future, and Charles knows it. The options are laid out like a chessboard, each move carrying immense consequences. The first and most symbolic is stripping Andrew of the title Prince of York. It's more than words. It's identity. It's a message to the world that the monarchy no longer tolerates past sins hiding behind royal titles. But such a move wouldn't go unnoticed. It would be brutal. and final. Yet, for many inside the palace and beyond, it's long overdue. Then there's the financial reckoning. Despite Andrew's exile from public life, he still reportedly receives private allowances money that funds his lifestyle and keeps Royal Lodge afloat. Cutting him off would be a definitive break, one that aligns with Charles's vision of a leaner, scandal-free monarchy. But the risks are immense. Push Andrew too far, and he might push back. Hard. Those close to the situation say the palace fears retaliation in the form of a tell-all memoir or a televised confession that could pull back the curtain on decades of royal secrets. To counter that possibility, palace officials have been quietly preparing legal safeguards, non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality clauses, financial settlements, all designed to keep Andrew silent and contain the damage before it starts. But there's only so much paper can hold back when emotion takes over, and Andrew, now feeling humiliated and backed into a corner, might not play by the rules much longer. Charles, ever conscious of his image as both king and father figure of the nation, knows that every step must be measured, appeared too aggressive, and he risks looking cold, heartless, just another ruler silencing dissent. But wait too long, and the public's faith begins to erode. Already, critics are asking why Andrew's title remains, why he still occupies a palace, residence, why there hasn't been a louder, clearer response from the throne. The crown, now more than ever, is balanced on a knife's edge, and with each passing day, the decision grows heavier. This is not just about punishing a brother, it's about preserving a legacy, about proving that the monarchy, under Charles's leadership, has the strength to reform even when it hurts. The king must choose loyalty or legacy, sentiment or survival. And now, as the palace holds its breath, one question echoes louder than ever: what will Charles do? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.